But let's get into it. I'll kind of throw things to you guys and insert little opinions I have here and there. But obviously, everyone wants to hear your guys' insights. You guys were sitting at the scores table. I was doing the video work. We do have some video from the scrimmage that we'll provide here on the show here today. And so we'll start. We're gonna basically talk about some standouts throughout practice and some big overview stuff as well. But let's start out, Kraig. I'll start with you, and you guys just kind of kick it around how you want. But who was your number one standout here from Fan Day at Mackey Arena?
I mean, I think beyond the obvious of like Braden Smith just being ridiculous and us knowing what Braden Smith can bring, if we're going to step aside from that a little bit and look elsewhere in terms of especially the newcomers, whether that's freshmen coming in or people that came in from the transfer portal, Oscar Cluff just jumped off the page and punched you in the face in terms of what he might be able to do for this Purdue team. We've heard about the rebounding. Painter's talked about it in every single interview he's done in terms of what he's seen from him rebounding in practice. We know that was Purdue's number one problem last year, along with defense. And where I'm really interested to hear from Joe here in just a second is about what he saw from Kluff defensively and what he might be able to do in terms of versatility out there. But he also impressed me from an offensive standpoint. Just his ability to work pick and roll in somewhat of a similar way is TKR, except he's going to try to go ahead and get all the way to the rim and finish. He had some nice post moves with his back to the basket. Thought he had a couple of nice interior passes in there also, even though he didn't get credited with an assist in either case. But Joe, I guess what's your thought in terms of what he can bring for this team from a defensive standpoint and in terms of his versatility? I know Steve Lutz came over and talked to us about that a little bit, which was really cool that an assistant coach just came over and was like, hey, did you see that? Like, this is what this kid can do.
Yeah, it was the single biggest surprise, I think. It for sure was the single biggest surprise for me kind of going into Fan Day is kind of him being out in this high hedge, really aggressive against pick and rolls. He's super long, and it doesn't always seem like it, but he really is, and so he can kind of cover space quickly. My thought, and with Jacobson, this is still going to be the case, but my thought going into the season was like it's going to be a more traditional style defense, kind of drop coverage, get back to forcing mid-range shots, right? Because with them in drop coverage, which means the big is going to be kind of playing below where the screen is happening. That's where your guards can kind of get bailed out a little bit. They still need to work to keep the ball in front, but it's not as big of a priority because you have a big there. What Purdue did with Zach Edey defensively for all the years that he was here, among others. But no, he was out there on the perimeter, hedging ball screens, pushing out. I'm very curious to ask Painter about it tomorrow because I have a couple questions surrounding it. But it's just from a pure shock standpoint, that was the most shocking thing to me.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't take your eyes off him. This is my first. I know you guys have been to practices here in the offseason, or Joe hasn't. Kraig has. Yeah. So for me personally, Joe, like as I'm doing the video work, putting stuff on social, and so there's a lot going on, and I'm trying to make sure, like in my head, my game plan going into the day was like, all right, let's try to get video of each player so we can give a visualization to people, and spread it out. But what happened is you just naturally start gravitating towards Oscar Cluff because he's involved in so much going on. And I'm glad you highlighted the defensive end because I think as fans, it doesn't matter what sport it is, even in football, we struggle to appreciate and focus and break down what's going on the defensive end. Everything gets broken down from an offensive standpoint. So that is duly noted how he is able to affect the pick and roll game and get in the high hedge. He talked a little bit about that with us after practice, how he's done both in terms of a drop coverage or, hedging off. So it'll be interesting to see how he affects it. Matt Painter said after practice that he is the best rebounder on this team by far. And I asked Painter, well, what specifically goes into him, separating himself from the pack and having that kind of title to Matt, because Matt doesn't give out compliments easily. He's always going to shoot it straight with you. And when he gives that high of a compliment, that's certainly got my ears perked up. And he basically talked about his motor, how it's a relentless motor that Oscar Cluff plays with, because it's not like he's Daniel Jacobson or Zach Edey with this tremendous size, but he's obviously big enough to hold his own, but it's that motor that is what separates him. And obviously he understands the angles and things of that nature. But if you look on the offensive side of the ball, you talk about pick and roll on defense. Well, you're going to be getting a healthy dose. I mean, Braden Smith's always operating in the high pick and roll, no matter who your big man is. But you can see already how Oscar Cluff is going to be a difference maker in the pick and roll for Braden Smith. This is a guy that, in my opinion, what I saw, soft hands, was able to take in passes from different angles. You saw it here from Omer Meyer here, comes around the other side, and had a nice, just nice inlet pass, but not much wasted movements from Oscar Cluff. It's, kind of rinse, wash, and repeat. Whether it's a bounce pass or a straight pass, he's ready for it, and, he's going to go up with it and make a play and even maybe get that and one. So, you saw even Fletcher Lawyer get in on the action with Oscar Cluff, but everybody's kind of working around him. This is going to be a tough team to double team, Kraig, when you've got so many different playmakers on the court, and now Oscar Cluff's going to be able to take some of that pressure off Trey Kaufman-Renn as well down low.
Yeah, and I think obviously the ball in terms of post play is still going to flow to TKR more than anybody. But if there's instances where Kluff is on the court, TKR is off, and or TKR gets into foul trouble, et cetera, Kluff showed that he's capable of being a focal point again as the post player. And I think that's huge because, I mean, when Trey left for whatever reason last year, there just wasn't one. There was absolutely no post presence at that point. And back to the rebounding quickly, I think just as importantly, even if he's not getting rebounds, he's just got such a big body. He's got a huge wingspan too, which helps him in that rebounding standpoint. But his ability just being that sturdy 6'11" big dude, he's carving out space that's going to allow TKR to get in there against a smaller 4-man. It's going to allow guards to just go get the ball and rip and go, get into transition as quickly as they possibly can also.
Yeah, Matt Spurgeon here in the chat says Cluff may only be 6'10", but he's got a short neck, long arms, and broad shoulders. He may as well be 7'1". So, Joe, I mean, the other thing that I really wasn't able to capture and have it where it was good enough to share with the audience, maybe I should have just cut something even if the result of the play wasn't a bucket. But the other thing that stood out to me was Oscar Cluff is pretty quick, or at least it felt that way, that he was quick with his decision making in terms of, all right, I'm going to kick it out here. And that caused the trickle down effect where now you've got the defense chasing. This is a team that I think is going to be great at sharing the basketball. And when you talk about Braden Smith demanding double teams at times, TKR demanding double teams at times, hell, most of these players on this team can find a way to demand one if they're playing well. But Oscar Cluff is somebody that can really start that domino effect where you get it inside. Now you've kicked out to the corner, and now it goes around the horn, and before you know it, you find an open man on the other side of the on the other side of the court.
Yeah, he's a really good connector piece in that big room with his ability to pass. I mean, he had a 21.8 assist rate last season to only 15.8 turnover percentage, which I'm going to look up Purdue's. Obviously, Braden's assist is going to be higher than that, but like last season, Oscar Cluff's assist rate would have been second on Purdue's roster. He is a very good decision maker. He makes pretty quick decisions. And so like the high-low looks between him and TKR, they're going to be fun because really either could pass to either. I think they're both very capable passers. They're both very capable short rollers. It is just going to be a lot of fun. I also think I don't think anybody's really concerned about it, but like if people were concerned about the double bigs with no spacing, I just don't see spacing being an issue kind of with their passing abilities and all the shooting that Purdue has. I just don't see it being an issue. He's also just, this is kind of getting away from like the offense a little bit, back to the rebounding. The thing that stood out to me with the rebounding is like, he gets it off the rim. Like we say that about players at time, like, oh, he does a good job getting it off the rim. Like Kluff got it legally got it off the rim. Whereas as soon as it's out of the cylinder, it was in his hands. And it was just really impressive to see, really on both ends of the floor too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, when you look at, who their big man rotation was last year with Trey Kaufman-Renn, Caleb First, Will Berg, and now you've, changed that into, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Oscar Cluff, and Daniel Jacobson. Time will tell, but I think these guys give some different looks to what this team can do on both ends of the court. We'll get into Daniel Jacobson here in a little bit, but from a big man rotation standpoint, they have to earn what I'm about to say, but I think there is a potential that there could be a significant upgrade in what they have from their bigs this year, offensively and defensively. But time will tell. It all looks good on paper, and it was impressive at Fan Day. But when it's Boilers versus Boilers, everybody's making a good play. So you got to I try to keep that in perspective, and that's why Friday will be really good and something we can really learn from here. So